a story that nobody in the mainstream media is covering is how Mark Carney, the Liberals, kind of the shadowy puppet master that it was always behind Justin Trudeau, that the Liberals are now running through to coronate to become the Prime Minister of Canada. Something that nobody's talking about is how he could use this one loophole to avoid disclosing potential conflicts of interest while becoming Prime Minister. And it's really shady, it's really sneaky, and I'm gonna walk you through this. Before I do that, folks, we know that Justin Trudeau has put in place all sorts of censorship laws, media bans, to avoid getting information like this out. So there's a couple of things I need you to do. First of all, there's a link in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the video description. This is a wrap up of all sorts of stories from last week that the media really didn't cover. And I'm trying to get that to you. To avoid these news bans, these censorship bans on certain social media platforms, or these censorship things on social media platforms, please click on that link. Seriously, just click on it. It's free, and click subscribe. It allows me to directly communicate with you and give you this information directly, as opposed to allowing Justin Trudeau's censorship laws, his media bans, all of these things to prevent this type of information from getting out, especially since Parliament is prorogued and, they're trying to silence us. So please click on the link that's in the comments. Please click subscribe. And now I'm going to get into the loophole that Mark Carney is potentially going to use. Okay, so let's start with some facts. First of all, Mark Carney is a global elitist. He actually self-described as this. So he said in this interview, he said, people will say that I'm elitist or a globalist. Well, that's exactly what we need. So this is last week, Mark Carney's describing himself as a globalist elitist. Now, why is he saying that? He's saying that because he's held very senior positions on some of the world's biggest companies, like Brookfield. Brookfield is a multi-billion-dollar everything corporation. And it started making headlines about the same time that Mark Carney was elevated into the senior advisory position with the Trudeau government last year. He didn't disclose any of his conflicts at that point in time, or potential conflicts. But at the same time, Brookfield was in talks with a proposed $50 billion domestic fund to pension leaders. Government draws lukewarm response. So Mark Carney didn't have to go through an ethics screen. He didn't go through any sort of screening, even though he was working in a senior advisory capacity, economic advisory capacity to the Prime Minister, to Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, while the company that he chaired was reportedly in talks to get money from the government to put some sort of major fund together. So again, like, he didn't have to go through ethics screening at that point in time, even though all of this stuff was happening. So it's really tough for people to see what potential conflicts he could have, right? But it gets even worse. There's more things. So for example, he was also on the board of a company called Stripe. Stripe is a major payments company, right? Well, again, in the fall, Stripe says it won't reduce merchant fees despite Ottawa's deals with credit card firms. So Mark Carney was on the board of Stripe at that point in time, yet Stripe wasn't passing along these savings. What happened there? Was Mark Carney involved in that? What sort of screens were put in place to make sure that he wasn't influencing any sort of decision-making in Ottawa on that file while he had a conflict of interest, potential conflict of interest? We don't know. Now, again, none of this has been proven one way or the other, but for somebody who's running to be Prime Minister, he should be disclosing this information, right? And he's not. He's not talking about like what kind of potential conflicts of interest he could. He's not disclosing this stuff to the Ethics Commissioner. Here's another example. So right now you've got Bloomberg News here. Bloomberg, they tweeted a couple of days ago, last week, for over a year, Canada's Conservative Party seemed on track to win a decisive victory, blah, 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 blah. It's sort of this pro-liberal tweet. Well, guess who's been on the board of Bloomberg for forever? Oh, it's Mark Carney, right? But yet he's not disclosing his relationship with this company. He's not putting that through an ethics screen. Now, we've been asking the Conservative Party, we've been asking him, saying like, look, if you want to be the Prime Minister of Canada, and he's going to become the Prime Minister of Canada, not through a general election, he's going to become the Prime Minister of Canada through this Liberal leadership race, we're saying, look, if you're going to backdoor become the Prime Minister of Canada this way, you've never held elected office, at a bare minimum, you need to kind of put all of this stuff to rest. You need to go through the ethics commissioner. You need to disclose all of your compensation, your potential conflicts of interest, put in place ethics screens so that you're not making decisions as the Prime Minister of Canada and, you know, having potential corporate ties, right? That's against the rules. But he's refused to do that. Now, today, this is the news that you're not going to hear on the mainstream media. Canada's ethics laws for public office holders at the federal level, like Mr. Carney would be if he became Prime Minister, they have a little loophole. So this is the loophole. Within 60 days after your appointment, you must submit to the commissioner a confidential report describing your assets, liabilities, incomes, and certain activities. Then within 120 days of your appointments, you must sign your summary statement. So the statement is like your list of all your potential conflicts, your assets, etc., whatever. Now, do the math on this. If he doesn't have to disclose his potential conflicts, his assets, etc., to the ethics commissioner within 60 days of becoming Prime Minister, that means, and drum roll please, he could go through an entire general election as Prime Minister of Canada without having to disclose his assets. And that's wrong. There's no way that like this guy who has never held elected office in Canada, but who has had all of these super senior board positions with companies that have had, you know, dealings with the federal government, there's no way that he should be ethically becoming Prime Minister without like complying with these rules, right? Because we need to know, you need to know, regardless of how you vote, you need to know how he's making decisions. So today, again, there's this loophole that the rumor in Ottawa is like, oh, well, he's not going to actually go through the election, the ethics process, because he's not going to do that unless he like wins a general election, and then, you know, whatever point in time he's going to do that, maybe. So this is really sneaky. This is really sus. How is it that the Canadian public is supposed to make a decision on whether or not he actually is conflicted in certain decisions or policies that he would be putting forward in a platform unless he's disclosed this stuff as Prime Minister of Canada? So today, what Conservatives have done is my colleague Michael Barrett put forward a letter demanding that Mark Carney make this type of disclosure as soon as possible. It's something that Michael has been talking about for over 6 months now, for all the reasons that I just talked about. And again, you know, like, look, at the end of the day, Mark Carney, you know, he might claim, well, I have no conflicts. There's no issue here. I mean, but how do we know unless he's gone through the screening process, right? Why won't he go through the screening process? If there's no conflict, then this shouldn't be a problem for him. He should just be able to, you know, be above the spirit of the law and put this in place. But yet he's not. So I think it's really unfortunate that more people in the media aren't talking about this, that they're not talking about this potential loophole that he could be using to skirt the rules after becoming Prime Minister of Canada by being coronated by Liberal Party insiders that are essentially Justin Trudeau's inner circle. It's a little sus, right? It's not what you want to see in a democracy. So please share this video. And again, this is something that, again, this is why the Liberals have prorogued Parliament, right? They don't want us to be asking these questions. They don't want these questions to be coming up in committee. They don't want them to be debated in the House of Commons. So the main way that I can get this type of information out is if you click subscribe on the link that's in the comments. It allows me to directly communicate with you instead of, you know, again, Justin Trudeau has these censorship bills, these news bans, social media platforms have algorithms that can downgrade certain voices. So please click subscribe. Please share this video. And again, like, this is why wouldn't he ask why Mark Carney wouldn't be putting forward his squeaky clean, no problem here portfolio to the ethics commissioner right now. at the very least, and the other thing that's kind of weird too is why aren't any of the other liberal leadership candidates asking him to do this, right? It's weird. Like, why isn't Chrystia Freeland or Karina Gold saying, like, well, if you've got nothing to hide, then why wouldn't you be subject to the same, put yourself to the subject to the same rules that I do, right? It's very strange. It's like they're purposely trying to exploit this loophole without you noticing it, and we've got to get the word out. Anyway, share this video, click subscribe. We'll come to you with more information as it unfolds, but working hard for you. Have a great day.